All right, cool. You ready, Rory?
I am.
All
I
right,
am.
sweet. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Matt's video series. You're probably wondering what the hell happened. Matt hasn't posted a video in like 6 months. I've been pretty poor, honestly, just Facebook and Instagram for the past 6 months. But I had a feeling that all my extra free time for like doing these videos and editing them and posting them would kind of go down when I had a kid. But kind of underestimated my lack of motivation to do all that stuff while also taking care of a kid. But Rory, you know all about that. You've got a couple kids yourself.
I do. They happen to be older and they still take a lot of time, Matt.
Yeah.
But just different amounts of time. At least yours listens to you
Um, yeah.
somewhat.
Yeah, maybe. I think he's a little too early to actually be like listening. But yeah, he at least is a captive audience.
Oh, probably a
Um,
best description is my puppy then. I have a puppy, Matt, and that's probably the same situation you're in. He doesn't listen, but
yeah.
he's cute.
All right. Well, so if you're on my page and you're watching this, you're probably wondering who is this guy joining me? I'm joined by Rory Schwartz. Rory Schwartz is a real estate mentor, a former managing broker. When I first got into the business, he was my grandma Kitty's managing broker for a long time. And part of the big reason why I've got into the business, stayed in the business, became a managing broker myself. And Rory and I both also share that within the past year and a half, 2 years, we both stepped away from being managing brokers to go back into full-time sales. So I thought, all right, I need a kick in the ass to get back into doing videos. I need somebody who's kind of in the same mode as me as far as kickstarting a real estate business after being a broker for a long time. Um, we're also alums from the St. Louis University High School too. So if you're watching this, you're welcome. Anyways, so Rory, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Matt, we've been talking about doing this for several months, and I'm glad that we're finally putting it together. I um, have been in the business. I just have to clarify, Grandma Kitty was older than me, so I was her broker during the last second half of her career. So she had been in the business forever. But thanks. As I said, we've talked about doing this. I've been wanting to do this. I have a hashtag What's Up, Rory, and I hope that this actually kicks my butt into actually doing this on a regular basis. So,
All right, cool. Well, I'm not going to overcommit, so let's shoot for like maybe once a month, and we'll just see how it goes from there.
good.
And we'll try to maybe we'll try to like spice it up and bring in some special guests too. Um, so.
Absolutely.
Um, all right. Anyways, lots of people are asking, wondering, everywhere I go, anytime I go to a family party or social event, whatever, what have you, people asking, what's up with the market? What's the deal? As agents, we're constantly asked to, I guess, like practice that script when we get that question on how you respond to that. And I also think that 2025 has been a year where some of the headlines online and on TV are talking about nationwide stats that may not necessarily paint an accurate picture for whatever specific market the question asker is really referring to when they ask that question. So, Rory, what's your take on what's going on in the market this year?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Of course, our appropriate response is, what market are you talking about? And as you were asking that question, I thought, I handled North County, Lincoln County, West County, and you handled South County and the city. And we both are in West County market right now. That we pretty much had it covered except for St. Charles, and you and I both know that that St. Charles market's just easy. Um, um, but I'm noticing price ranges. There's a difference in markets just in price ranges. I have a listing out in Wentzville that's at 600,000. I did a study on it, and it was 600 to 625. There were no showings in the entire MLS over the past couple of weeks in that price range. But you got closer to five, and things started to pick up. And of course, the lower you went, the higher it is. North County is struggling a little bit at the moment. And I'm talking more North County than your Florissant Hazelwoods, but I think West County is just hot, at least in St. Louis County from what I'm seeing. How about you? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I would agree. Most of my business this year has been in the Central Corridor and West County. So looking at, like between Olivet and Creve Coeur down to Webster, Glendale, Kirkwood, and, going out west towards like De Pere, Manchester, Baldwin, Town and Country areas, and then kind of everything in between there. And yeah, it seems like everything is really hot for some of my buyers. If you wanted that move up house, you're selling your small first time home buyer house and you're trying to buy a house that's going to be big enough for your family to stay in for 10, 15, 20 years. It was like an as is auction market for a lot of those areas, especially if you were kind of in that 5 to 800 range. If you weren't prepared to go, about 10% over asking and remove a bunch of contingencies for the really nice stuff, you just weren't going to have a chance. And even stuff that maybe it wasn't as nice, but maybe it was competitively priced, was still getting that type of action.
Yeah,
So yeah, kind of hard for those people,
yeah.
especially like I was saying, if you're a move up buyer and you've you got limited flexibility because you also have to get rid of a house at the same time or buy a house without a contingency and carry two mortgage payments.
Yeah, we have two buyers like that right now, and the house they're selling is probably in that 3 to 350, which they bought for two
Hmm.
just 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And the house that they want to buy is 5 to 5-ish within 50,000 one way or the other.
Hmm.
And I mean, super competitive. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking the last one was 9 offers, and it went 50,000 over asking price.
Yeah.
And I can see it. It's really hard as a buyer when you're not when you're being put in that situation to pay more than 50,000 over asking price. But you have to look at you also are making 100,000 in 3 years off of the house you're selling. You know, but it's a hard concept when
Yeah.
it's your money. It's okay
Yeah.
for someone else, but it's a hard concept when it's your money. So
Yeah. Well, we did some stats that we can look at as we get further into our little conversation here. But I think it's also a tough pill to swallow when, again, like I was mentioning before, if you're watching the news or you're, reading some of these articles on some of like the mainstream websites and they're talking about how the market is shifting and like, houses are sitting and prices are falling like across the country. But you're looking at a situation where it might as well be 2021, 2022.
yeah,
It's kind of tough to swallow that. And yeah, kind of one thing that I have said to multiple people this year, and I'm not even sure if the number is really accurate, but that concept of the 85% house, like you're not going to find a 100% perfect house. And so you need to look for that 85% house and, maybe that 15% between 85 and 100, have that 15% be things that you can at least change and you have the power to change. Like you can't change the location or like if you're adamant about being close to school or like a commute, you can't really change that unless you're, changing schools or changing jobs. But like if it needs to, it needs updates to the bathroom, you can change that. If the landscaping sucks, you can change that. So you can change those things. So now I say like whether or not that stat 85% 85% rule is accurate. I don't know that it is because it seems like in certain price points, you need to accept the fact that maybe you should be looking at a 75% or a 70% if you want to be able to get your hands on something and not severely overpay or put yourself in a tight spot as far as inspection protections, things like that. So, because I don't know what market it was when that 85% rule was created, because this comes from the ninja selling teachings. But um, I could imagine that 85% actually comes from a much healthier, more balanced market. So I don't know what your take is on that.
I would agree. Being in the market myself, just kind of scouring, of course I want a perfect house. But I'm down to, I take a 4 bedroom ranch anywhere.
Yeah,
The old, because I will make that fourth bedroom a main floor laundry, expand my primary bedroom, and I'll make changes. I mean, I've lowered my own standards because, you look around, and if location is the one thing you can't change, and that's the one thing that I want, is location, but everything else is changeable. Down to putting on a room addition, most people don't want to go through that. I get that, but you can deal with an old bathroom or
yeah,
ugly paint or landscaping, for a short period of time.
yeah,
But
yeah. Uh, Especially also like you were saying before, if you are going to be selling a house and you're going to be walking away with, a ton of equity on the sale of that house, that you can then put towards improvements and repairs and modifications on the new house. So, uh, anyways, that's just something that's been kind of on my mind this year, working with certain buyers is if you are looking for perfection, you're gonna have to pay a premium for it, or you're just not going to find it, and you're just going to be sitting on the sidelines. And I know we've like as far as an industry goes, and our economic projections on what is going to happen to interest rates, it's clearly just a guessing game because we've been saying for the past few years, oh, they're going to go down, and any period of time that we do get decreases, it seems like then we reverse course and they're going back up because of some other, positive economic report that impacts the Fed's decisions. Um, and I don't really know. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what your political stance is on all that. It is true that economists have been saying, oh, they've got to go down. They're gonna go down, and then they do, but then they just go back up again. So, but despite all that, at least here in our market area, prices have continued to go up. So, my point being about you don't want to just continue to sit on the sidelines if you're insistent on, purchasing a home, is that like if you keep sitting around looking for something perfect, the prices are just going up. So, and given given what we're seeing with some of these municipalities and their showing stats and the percent of asking price they receive on average for sold properties, there's a lot of them that are still averaging over 100%. It doesn't seem like that price appreciation is going anywhere anytime soon, as far as the next year or two.
no, it's funny you say that because we we did get a buyer under contract in St. Charles County. Um, but the reason why we did was they initially put their house on the market for $100,000 more than it was worth. So it sat there, sat there, sat there. And the whole reason why we got under contract was they finally realized they were overpriced, and we got it for 20,000 under what they had reduced it to because they had, what I was thinking a good thing for us to cover was, at the end of every year, KCM always puts out their predictions for the next year. We need to take a look at their predictions for this year because they all predicted interest rates were going down this year.
Yeah.
Um, and what was it? We said, they've been floating around 6% for the past 3 years. And so I think it would be really interesting to take a look at predictions versus reality this year.
Yeah.
See how we are, see how the experts are coming out with it.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. We could do that for a future video. We could also, since we're not fully through 2025 as far as how it compares to 2024 predictions, I know for a fact that there were things that were wrong about like predictions made at the end of 2023 about 2024.
Right.
So, I know for a fact that there's things that were wrong that did not come to fruition in 2024 that I would say are probably consistent with how the year is panning out so far compared to projections made into 2024.
Yeah. Too bad
Um,
they didn't ask us, Matt, because we would have told the truth and we would have been a
right.
little bit more right. So.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have sugarcoated anything for the benefit of our business or income or anything. We don't spin here, Rory. We are 100% truthful all the time. Okay, well, all right. Speaking of projections and where we're at year to date, if you've watched any of these videos I've done in the past, I would show you all of these like colorful charts and graphs and stats out of a tool in the MLS that I used to love, but recently I think it's because of some of the changes they made in the MLS system this year. But that charting tool is like all messed up. It is like just yeah, I've cross-referenced it with some other tools we have in the MLS, and some of the stats that it's publishing are just not correct. So, what I did do this time around is I took these huge PDF reports that are published every single month or every single quarter. And instead of reading through all these reports, because some of them are like 200 to 300 pages long, I uploaded these reports into ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to read all the reports and give me some interesting stats. So I shared these stats with Rory, and I figure we could move into looking at some of these stats. So let's see. Let's just start with the one I have most recently, top 10 and worst 10 zip codes for days on market changes. As Rory mentioned before, he's North County, but he previously worked out in Lincoln County, but now we're both West County area. So I just limited this to St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. So didn't do Jefferson County, didn't do Lincoln County, didn't do Warren County, didn't do anything on the Illinois side for the St. Louis metro area. So just those three counties. But top 10 zip codes with the largest increases in days on market year over year from quarter two 2025 compared to quarter two 2024. Um, as Rory was saying, there's some north here. So, like the worst 1 year change was in North City, 63106. But it's such a sharp increase that I feel like that there's got to be an outlier that is like total, or a few outliers that have got to be dragging that up because it's like 100 or it's 1250%, which is crazy. Um, but some that are like not, part of the north area, as Rory was talking about, the Defiance area, 63341, that has had a huge increase in days on market. Um, Chesterfield, 63005. It's averaging 26 days on market, which was 116% increase over quarter two 2025, 2024. I think we were talking about some of the price points where some things are starting to sit. I think that there are some of the higher price point homes and new construction spec homes that are starting to sit, and so that's probably causing an increase in days on market. Um, Another one that I thought was interesting was the 63348 zip code out in St. Charles County. That's like the Forestal area. Reason why I think that's kind of interesting is for longest time we've seen such like a tremendous growth like west of Wentzville, like St. Charles County, like the population just getting further and further out and new construction opportunities going further and further out. So I thought it was kind of interesting that 63348 had such a high increase in days on market for quarter two. Um, Another thing that I thought was interesting with the high price points, 63141, probably again, it's the high price points and some of the new construction sitting on the market, but that's like the Creve Coeur Frontenac area for their days on market going up to 33 days on market average compared to quarter two last year, like a 65% increase. And then two others that are not part of the that high price point really. Maplewood 63143 and 63109 in South City, which is like the St. Louis Hills and Southampton area. Those rounded out the top 10 as far as increases in days on market average. Anything stick out to you there, Rory?
Well, what was sticking out to me is exactly what you said, but Defiance, Chesterfield, Creve Coeur, Frontenac, they all have that also that top tier price range in them,
Hmm.
which I think is part of it, because that top tier, from what I've read, is has slowed down. And the one thing is when we're getting emailed from builders that they have spec homes, we haven't seen that in a lot. I mean, and we're not talking one spec home. We're talking they have spec homes in every subdivision they're building. We haven't seen that in a while,
Hmm.
which is telling me that that is. I was really surprised to see Maplewood
Yep.
uh, and that South City, St. Louis Hills area, because South City has been hot for the past 4 or 5 years. Um, Not that it's not hot, we're not talking big numbers here. Um, but and Maplewood, Maplewood has seen a huge comeback over the past 5 to 10 years. That surprised me. But top tier, and I can't explain the Maplewood South City area there.
Yeah.
Um, From what I have seen in St. Louis Hills, there's been what's come on the market because I've been looking down there is your typical someone bought it 30 years ago and no updates has
Yeah.
been a tremendous, what's been coming on the market. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I sold one. I had a listing. It was actually 63139. So not 109, but it was close to the border between 63139 and 63109. And I remember when I was doing some, looking at comparables for that listing, there were a number that had been sitting on the market for quite a while. And just to your point, they were not as updated and yeah, clearly uh, buyers were not biting at it at the prices that they were asking for. So, all right. On the flip side, though, top 10 zip codes with largest decrease in days on market for quarter two of this year compared to last year. 63357, that's the Marthasville area. That's out in St. Charles County. Um, Again, we've got interesting one here. Lafayette Square and Soulard area, 63104 has had a 32.6% decrease for quarter two compared to last year. I thought that was interesting. Eureka also, that's 63025, 30% decrease. 63105, that's the Clayton U City kind of Y down area. That's had a 23.4% decrease in days on market. Um, the O'Fallon area of St. Charles, 63368, that's a 14.8% decrease. And then another one here that I thought is interesting because this is quarter two 2025. And we'll see what happens with quarter three 2025 when we get to that point. The Central West End area, 63108, 12.5% decrease. The reason why I say that is okay, uh, quarter two is April, May, June. The big tornado came through May 15th, May 16th. One of those 2 days, I believe. It was
Yeah.
right smack dab in the middle of May. So that's technically right smack dab in the middle of quarter two. And two of our top 10 zip codes with the largest decreases in days on market were pretty severely impacted by that huge tornado, 63105 and 63108, and both of them are showing up on the top 10 zip codes with the largest decrease in days on market. I thought that's pretty interesting. I don't do a ton of business in 63108. I did do one deal in 63105 so far this year, and I've got a buyer looking in that zip code currently. But we'll see what happens with that because I would have thought that maybe the tornado would have impacted some of those stats. But again, I don't pay attention too much to that area. But then also North County area 63136, North County like the Jennings area. And then also Wildwood too. So Wildwood 63038. That's down 15.8% down to an average of 16. Now there were two on this top 10 list that was spit out by ChatGPT, and we were talking with another realtor at a recent St. Louis Association event about the problem sometimes with ChatGPT with doing some of this analysis, and he was saying sometimes it's not that great for some of the statistical analysis. And I had told you and your son Josh before that I had some issues with ChatGPT. It included on this top 10 decrease list, it included two zip codes that had big increases. So that was an error made by ChatGPT. It was 63303 St. Charles County, and then 63144 St. Louis County. 63144 is my home zip code, and the days on market are up compared to last year. And a big reason for that, I know for sure, is some higher priced homes sitting there, and then also condo problems with Brentwood Forest and the number of condos that are just sitting there for sale because Brentwood Forest is still working its way through some of the insurability and finance issues with getting conventional loans to purchase those properties. So there's a bunch that are sitting there that are not selling, and so that's probably why there's a huge increase in days on market for that. Anything there, Rory, you want to say?
Um, I the except for O'Fallon, a lot of these are and Wildwood, I guess, outliers. Um, it's not your main track like Jennings. 45 days it dropped. Um, you know, I don't see any like the Clayton, U City and Wydown area. That's pretty hot area. But these
Hmm.
aren't like areas that I mean, I think that they're not big areas that well, Lafayette Square. I could see that. I don't know. I find this list very interesting because it's not your typical it's not what we would have expected a year ago.
Yeah.
Um, and Central West End, like in the city there, there was a lot of people that put their listings on hold, but then there was a lot of people. I remember a couple of agents who had some listings down there that they were getting showings, a couple of days after the tornado down there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know. It's a deeper dive, and I wonder if that ChatGPT thing is. Well, I know that it's not. We were given another um, website to actually that was better with stats. That I would love to run these numbers through that one um, to see how it compares. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, I doing a deeper dive, I could see O'Fallon. I could even see the Central West End. I mean, there's some really cool houses that have come on the market in the past, I'd say 30 days down in the Central West End. But um, no, it's just real weird. I just think that the whole statistic of these areas, St. Charles County um, to Jennings, the numbers are just it's just been real weird because Jennings is going to be the average sale price of Jennings is still what is it, 60, $70,000 if you just take the average,
Hmm.
which you would assume is either investors or first time home buyers.
Yeah.
But Marthasville, that's kind of an outlier
Yeah.
area. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think time will tell.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I wish probably next time when we do this and we use that other tool for statistical analysis, I wanted to put in there and like filter it by zip codes that had X amount of listings, like a minimum of X amount of listings. Just because
yeah,
I can imagine, Marthasville, it was, number one top of the list. Well, if you only have like a handful of listings,
yeah, one
y-
listing could make a big difference in your numbers.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um,
Or, you talked about investors with the North County Jennings area. I have a buddy who works for a real estate group where their investment group, they buy entire bundles of properties all at the same time. So if one group buys like 10 houses all at once, then like there's 10 deals that go away and the days on market stats are significantly swayed by that. The other thing too, we had a basically an educational like lunch and learn uh, you know presentation type thing with someone from our MLS system who was talking about how to use the different statuses within the MLS system and how they impact days on market calculation. And she was talking about how many brokerages out there are still misusing pending versus active under contract. And those two different statuses, they're under contract statuses, but they calculate the days on market differently. And so if you've got a brokerage that does a lot of business in a particular area, and they are misusing days on market, they could be swaying the stats, and days on market may not be super accurate. And then also there's some situations I've had it a few times this year where uh, they are, putting it active on a Wednesday, but they are not starting showings really until Friday, and then they're not going to review offers until Monday morning, and then they don't change the status until Tuesday morning after they've signed a contract. And so then you've got all those days on market starting on Wednesday, but really like Monday didn't count because they already are past their offer deadline, and Wednesday and Thursday don't count because they weren't allowing any showings really. So you're kind of throwing off the days on market calculation. So I've long held that gripe with some of these days on market stats, but it is interesting, kind of how all over the place it is. Uh, Other things that we ran through ChatGPT, we did 10 areas with the largest year over year increase in showings per listing for the month of June. So, showings per listing, this stat comes from our tool that we use for scheduling all of our showings. It's called Showing Time. But there was a number of interesting ones in there. I did not filter this by St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and St. Louis City. So there are some ones in there that are kind of out of place. But I'm just going to point out the ones that I thought are interesting. Valley Park increase of showings per listing by 78%, over 78% compared to last June. I thought that was interesting. Um, Webster Groves, also huge increase this June versus last June, 70%. Um, Going down into Jefferson County, which we didn't filter this out, but House Springs had a huge increase by 68%. Olivet, another big increase, 60%. Ellisville, that's out there, West County, 58%. Shrewsbury as well, 57%. There were some other ones in there too, like Glencoe, St. Jacob, Illinois, the Carondelet area of St. Louis City, Truesdale. Those are not any areas that I feel like you or I ever do any business in. So not don't have
no,
a
I
whole lot
was
of
showing in
context.
Valley Park. My nephew was looking in Valley Park, and I mean that Valley Park actually has some floodplain areas which we ran into, and
Hmm.
some first-time home buyer low, like under 150 first-time
Hmm.
home buyer thing. And I find it like Olivet is, I was, and this is from being in the business way too long, but there's a lot of areas that to me have a sub area. And Olivet is one of those sub areas to what I would say is Ladue. Part of the school district is Ladue.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really shown a resurgence in the past few years. Tear downs, rehabs. I sold
Yeah,
one in Olivet that will probably double in price once the investor is done fixing it up. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, I've shown lots of properties in Olivet. Ones that have gotten multiple offers in less than 12 hours for over 100 grand over asking price. I'm showing one later today, though, that's been sitting on the market for a week and a half, and has gotten a ton of showings, but has not gone under contract yet. So, um, all right, on the flip side, 10 areas with the worst year-over-year change in showings per listing. Uh, so again, not going to go through all of them, but Delwood at the top of the list. Bridgeton's up there, Bell Fountain Neighbors, Pine Lawn, Jennings. Most of these on this list, Rory, are North County, North City areas.
I wouldn't say most. I would say every single one of them.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. It's all North County, actually, Woodson Terrace and all that. But um, I no, I have no other than the market has softened,
hmm
and statistics don't lie, but statistics are can be read. You could go from an average of four showings to two, and you got a 50%
Yeah.
decrease. So
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of it would have to do with that.
I would think that's definitely part of it because I did some other research on average showings per listing by specific municipality, breaking it out from June, May, April, March, and then I looked at what St. Louis County, St. Louis City, St. Charles County averages were for those particular months. And there were some North County areas that were pretty consistent with the St. Louis County average. St. Louis County average in March was 7.4 showings per listing. Going to June, it was 6.4. And for like Hazelwood and Florissant, for example, they were pretty consistent with those showings per listing. Hazelwood is on this list of top 10 in terms of the drop off, but it could just be a number of listings that significantly sway that. But I think still is kind of telling that it's all north areas that show up on this list.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I mean, North County is the biggest, what I would consider the biggest part of St. Louis County because it goes theoretically all the way over to Page,
hmm
and Spanish Lake, and so it encompasses a big, large. And I always say it's the area that got hit and hurt the most during that 20-year decline. And it's probably made the biggest comeback in the past 5 years too. But we're not talking the highest selling prices. We're talking added value to the houses. So
Yeah.
$100,000 houses are now 200,000. So
Yeah.
once again, that's a doubling the price, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the highest value for it. So
Yeah, and I think another topic of conversation has been about the affordability crisis for the you know purchasing real estate if you're looking to be a home buyer, and also a big talking point has been the huge increase over the past 2, 3 decades in the average age of a first-time home buyer. What it used to be versus what it is now. And I think when we have affordability issues and cost of living issues and sale price and interest rate increases, the lower end gets hurt the hardest in terms of small changes that can make or break their ability to close a deal. And I've also always said this to other agents too about um, real estate agents and how savvy you have to be when you're operating in those price points because $100 either way could totally ruin a deal. So you got to be really creative and really smart about how you can help your buyer get to the finish line and help your seller get to the finish line. So it is unfortunate that I do think that with some of the affordability issues our real estate market is dealing with and our economy is dealing with, that this is an example of the area of town that's getting hit the hardest.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, so let's see. 10 areas with the highest year-over-year increase in number of listings. Um, there are some north areas in there. Blackjack. Let's see what else. Wellston, that would be north too.
it
Um,
is.
yeah, there's some areas in here that again I did not filter it by the specific county. So we've got New Haven, Truesdale, Swansea, Illinois, Burns Mill, um, Gerald, but Richmond Heights is in there with a big increase in number of listings at 94%. Um, yeah, so and not much to talk about there just because I didn't really filter it to relevant areas. But um, and again, these increased numbers, I think I'm led to believe that they may have had a bunch of houses hit the market or new construction that's hit the market in those specific areas.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Blackjack, that could be the new construction. I
Yeah.
think there was some old lots that have been sitting there forever that somebody put into the MLS for new construction
Okay.
past year. Richmond Heights, that that's interesting. That's an area that that I'm surprised about.
Well, I do know that Fisher Homes, they have a
Um,
development that is along Eager Road there that it seems like it would be
right,
Brentwood, but it's actually technically Richmond Heights.
gotcha.
So
That
I
makes
think that,
sense.
yeah, that would be part of it. Um, all right, 10 areas with the worst year-over-year decline in listings. Again, I did not filter this. I wish I did. But Clayton down 66%. Overland down. St. Paul down. St. Paul is just north of the O'Fallon area. Warson Woods down. Peevely, Bonterre, and Breckenridge Hills. They're all down. So now these are like, again, some of these areas are really small areas where if you just have like you know, a shift, like one shift in number of listings per month, can lead to a 50% decrease in the number of listings showing up that month. So, um, not, I'm not, I'm not again, we saw that 63105 was a hot area in terms of decrease in days on market, and Clayton is in here in terms of decrease in number of listings. So you get a decrease in inventory, but it's still a hot area that people want to live in, and your days on market are going to go down. That's my take on that.
Yeah, in St. Paul, actually, they're building, and I don't know if they actually voted it in, but they were building those subdivisions on residential regular lots, subdivision lots, when they
Hmm.
had a minimum prior to that. And my
Hmm.
understanding is St. Paul went back to the minimum. Like you can't build a subdivision. You're on an acre or 3 acres or 5 acres out there in St. Paul again. So that that probably thinned out the new construction there because that would be a big portion of it.
Yeah. Well, there's been, I guess I feel like there's been a few news stories in the, past year of these proposed developments out west in St. Charles County that are getting turned down, whether it's by the city council or concerned citizens or planning and zoning for various reasons, whether it's, lot size or schools already bursting at the seams, or the number of people that are already commuting up and down a two-lane road, and you're talking about adding hundreds of homes along there.
Right.
Those are all complications for new construction development. All right, moving on to our last thing in our stats packet here. The zip codes, top 10 declines and percent of original price received. So basically, list price to sale price ratio. This stat is looking at the original sale price or the original list price, and when it's sold, the decline in percentage of original list price. On that top 10 list, we've got, I hate to keep going back to your thing about the North area, but we got the North Riverfront area, 63102 in the city. We've got Ferguson, 631 through 5. We've got 63138, which I believe is the Spanish Lake area, correct? Um,
Yes.
and then we've got 63106, which is North City. And then a couple areas that are other areas that are actually just kind of more north. West Alton, 63386, and how do you say it? Portage des Sioux?
Portage to Sioux.
Okay, yeah. So other things on there though that are decreased Defiance. So we talked before about the higher price point areas getting less action, so that's had a decrease. Augusta. But then also other areas that have shown up on other reports in our analysis here, 63109, that had a decrease, and the Maplewood area had a decrease too. Now, what's interesting though about 63109 is it is among the top 10 decreases at a decrease of 3.7% compared to last year, but on average, it is still 102.4% on the percentage of sale price received. So um, I think that in my experience with that one listing I was talking about earlier this year, um, you get the good listings if they're appropriately priced. They're still getting, you know, 3, 5, 10 offers, and still going 25 or more $1,000 over asking. So you might have some that are sitting on the market a long time and not selling right away and then selling for significantly less than asking when they do finally sell. But there are still a bunch that are selling for significantly more than 102% of the asking price.
Yeah, the other thing that these numbers and why we've spent the past several years pushing the market. And when the market softens, pushing the market, well, you may have been able to list it for 500,000 or 50,000 a couple of years ago and still been able to get the sale. We're pushing the market today. We have to adjust that mentality a little bit that maybe we're over pushing, and that's why these numbers are increasing or
Yeah,
decreasing, however.
yeah,
Um, and I noticed that even with the Wentzville listing, we were pushing the market there. Because 6 months ago, everything was selling quickly and over, and there's a lull. There's a definite, once you look at the statistics over the past few months, the days on market and that price range have gone up. So it,
yeah,
it it's making the adjustments quick enough.
yeah. All right, flip side of that, increases in percentage of original list price received. This was a chart that ChatGPT I felt like just got brutally wrong because four of the top 10 are negatives on its list, which doesn't make sense. They should all be positive increases. So that is messed up. And the other thing that's messed up, Rory, do you know where 63168 is?
No idea.
Exactly. Neither does Google. So I don't know where ChatGPT got this zip code. I kept searching. I was like, where is this zip code? I don't think it exists. So I don't know how ChatGPT pulled this out of I think it was like a 261 page report, is what I put in there. So um, anyways, I did, cross-reference a number of those other numbers to make sure that ChatGPT did get the number right. But there are some things in here that I've caught that are not right. So Um, but Central West End 63108 was on this list. And then also part of the O'Fallon St. Paul area was also on this list for increases in percentage of original list price received. But also two north zip codes, 63136 and 63133. They were also on this list. So um, they are increases though, but they are still less than 100%. So on average, they are not getting the asking price. And so they probably are not selling right away, but they did have an increase compared to last year. So anyways, that's kind of our take on the stats on what we fed into ChatGPT. We will probably um, do some more of that. Rory, we're about 50 minutes in here, so we've been talking for a while. But any other fun stories you want to talk about, or things that you have had a perspective on this year that you want to share with the audience?
Um, I, I, I think this is a lesson, and you can verify this, Matt. ChatGPT is something to use to organize your thoughts, but you've got to verify it. Kids, don't write your papers based on ChatGPT, um, because it organizes the bullet points, but then I think you have to go back and verify. Um, no, man, I can tell you that I think that we are in a changing year. I'm going to be really interested when we do that comparison of what was predicted and how this year turns out. I think that's going to be a real interesting to see because it was an election year, it was a change and all that, and all the noise is up in Washington, D.C. But when you actually kind of look back at this stuff, not much has really changed other than I think the market is softening, not as much in the Midwest as you see in the headlines, but we didn't have the extreme prices that we have in other areas of the country. So,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was reading something the other day about how there's like kind of two different storylines uh, as far as different regions within the United States and major metropolitan areas that are either they're softening significantly or they are still kind of going crazy in terms of price appreciation and competition. And one of my favorite housing economists that I follow on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And yes, I'm still on Twitter or X. Part of the reason being, aside from some of the daily hilarity that's on there, I also a lot of these housing data nerds, they post all their charts on Twitter before they ever like publish them in an article. So if you want to see some of the stats immediately published, anyways. Um, Inventory levels compared to 2019. So, did we have a like huge increase or decrease in terms of inventory? And we've been struggling with inventory since COVID. We've never really improved there. Markets that are heavily impacted by condos and condo sales. So you're seeing some of these metro areas where the inside the actual city, there's a lot of condo activity that influences the overall market, or a state like Florida, where there's lots of condos and second homes. And there's been a lot of issues with condos in terms of insurance and special assessments and the ability to get conventional or FHA or VA financing on those things. The St. Louis market is not as influenced by a condo activity compared to some of those other areas. Taxes and insurance stress. We've not had like significant changes within our governance on how we're doing, handling property taxes. And also our homeowners insurance, while homeowners insurance has gotten expensive, relatively speaking, here in the St. Louis area compared to how it used to be, we're not a state that is having issues with people just getting insurance, period. like a California or a Florida or somewhere along a coastal area or a wildfire area. And then also a big one, net population migration. Like St. Louis, unfortunately, is what it is. And actually, it was in that U-Haul report.
I
The
saw
St.
that.
Louis area, city of St. Louis saw the second highest decline in population across metropolitan areas between 2020 and 2024. But we've been on that trend for a while. So we're not like a Nashville, a Denver, an Austin, or a South Florida that, had a huge boom in population, and all of a sudden now things are shifting the opposite direction. And people are moving away. Like St. Louis has kind of been on the same net population migration pattern for a long time. So that's why you're not. Anyways, according to this economist, that's a big reason why we're not seeing St. Louis and our some of our Midwestern cities fall into this housing market softening that we're seeing in other parts of the country. So,
Yeah, I would say that. A couple of things that I've learned this week. One, with the insurance, tornadoes, storms, hail, natural disasters. I used to tell people that doesn't count against you in insurance, and it does. I found out this week. I
whoops.
had a client who was paying 2,500 and they're moving. They got a quote for 8,500 bucks on their new house.
Mm,
And it has to do with they had two natural disaster claims, both
mm,
tornadoes actually,
yeah.
on their previous house. And I questioned my insurance agent, and she said, yeah, that they used to tell people it didn't count against them. So,
Hmm.
and the other interesting take, Matt, is I know that you and Lauren have been kind of looking for possibly a move. I started thinking we're in two different stages of our lives, and we're both looking to move, and we're both kind of looking in the same areas. It'd be really interesting what we both end up with. Um,
Well, I will avoid the ranches, so you have a chance.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, no, but that is the thing though, that and I say the ranch, that is the crossover. Um, you know, the retiree generation, more and more of them are, you can't find a villa, you can't afford a villa. They don't exist. They're not realistic. So you look for a ranch to have main floor everything, and modify that ranch to suit your needs. And so when I'm working with some of these buyers in Olivet and Warson Woods and Kirkwood, and we're seeing these updated ranches that are 3 or 4 bedrooms, and my buyers are like, how did they get someone to pay 100,000 over asking for this? Well, you've got two different demographics that are competing for that same particular piece of property. And someone of the older generation, they might have more flexibility on being super cash aggressive on buying that house. So yeah, no, we're going for a story and a half. Um, so oh, and we're not even looking at something that's super nice either, because I just know that we're going to renovate it. So what's the point in paying a premium to beat out competition on something that is like updated when I already know that we're going to want to change the primary bathroom, the primary bedroom, the closet space, the kitchen, that kind of thing.
Because you're
So
particular, right, Matt?
I am particular. Yeah. Yeah. I need a 5 bedroom just to take one of those bedrooms and turn it into a master closet. So like yeah, that's what I'm dealing with. All right. Well, anyways, that's about it. Oh, I did reference that U-Haul report. It was interesting. They published a report on where people are moving to or moving from to St. Louis. This is data from January to July of this year. States, Illinois, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Kansas, Indiana, Colorado. Illinois, there's lots of people that are always moving from Chicago, so that's not a huge surprise. There's also a lot of people from south western Illinois that are moving across the river to the Missouri side. So not a huge surprise there. Texas, that's interesting. Were there people that moved to Austin, Dallas, Houston, and are now moving back? I don't know. Maybe. Florida, that's not surprising. People who moved to Florida during COVID, or bought a their retirement place in Florida, and now it's not that affordable anymore. And so, moving back, that's not a huge surprise. Tennessee, another thing. Did you move to Nashville and now you're over it and you're moving back? I don't know. Maybe that's a phenomenon. Kansas, yeah, sure, get out of there. And Indiana and Colorado. Indiana, not surprising, but Colorado, it's expensive out there. So St. Louis is a lot more affordable than that. Um, Metro areas, I just said it. Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and Nashville. So Atlanta's an interesting one. Um, any thoughts on that? Anything stick out to you there?
Well, blue to red, red to blue, blue to red. I mean, it's all affordability. Everybody was moving to Florida because they have no taxes. Once you're actually retired and you don't have the income that you did, I mean, I I I, I love those reports. I don't put much weight other than the fact that it has bothered me. St. Louis, decline in population, especially the city. Um, and it doesn't make sense because you hear all everybody wants to move to the city, especially the younger generations. But we're still losing population there. So I think it's a wake up call.
Yeah.
Just like just like the decline in Cardinal attendance this year. It's a wake up call.
Hmm.
Uh, I hate to see that, but someone, I guess, needed a wake up call there. So we'll see.
Yeah. Man in the
Keep
yellow text, new GM of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Uh,
all right, cool. Well, anyways, we've been talking for an hour. That's enough. You've heard enough out of us. I'm gonna clip this off as many ways as my AI tool will allow me. We will do this video again sometime in August, and maybe we'll have something new to talk about or someone new to join us. Maybe someone from St. Charles who can tell us what's going on out there, because we don't exactly know. Anything else before we leave, Rory?
nope, that's it.
All
I,
right.
I appreciate the time.
All right. Cool, Rory. Thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. See you later.